Now let's create our little wire shape at the top of our stun gun. So we want to have a piece kind of extending out from this opening that we just created and connecting into this top kind of half circle piece that we've got here. I want to have a little kink in this, so I want to bring up this opening a little bit higher. So let's select those points. I deselect the ones at the base. And let's just bring this up in the Y. And I'm also going to bring up these and just create kind of still a clean curve there, but I just want it to be a little bit higher up. So maybe something like that. Let's now create a primitive cylinder and bring it into that opening. So kind of bring it up in there. Let's change our rotation, and in the X, let's set it to 90. Kind of bring it down into position. We can take the radius of that down a little bit. Let's take our subdivisions down. We don't need quite that many. So take it maybe down to 12 or 8. Bring that into that opening. Let's add a subdivision along on the cap. Bring this in. All right, now we want to extrude out this sort of wire shape. And so let's actually just select these polygons on this inner part of the cap. We can just do an extrude, and then we can just pull this straight out along the Z. So just kind of pull it out to where we want it to end here. So something like that. All right. Now we need to create some divisions in here. So let's go ahead and use the Insert Edge Loop tool. And let's use multiple edge loops. And let's set this up to maybe the highest. Let's set it up to 10, and we'll just pop in some edge loops. Something like that. All right, now I want to shape this a little bit before I start to add the brackets. I don't want it to just be straight. I want it to actually kind of come down a little bit. And so let's go ahead and put a little kink in here. So I'll select all the points basically up to that first row, and let's just move them down a little bit. So something like that. Just move them in that one single axis. Now when we smooth it, I don't want it to be a smooth curve. I want to have those kinks in there. And right now, if I smooth it, very smooth, too smooth. So we can use the Offset Edge Loop tool to add a loop on either side of those kinks, so that when we smooth it, it's now smoothing between those two edges, and it'll give us a nice hard kink, just like that. Now I want to kind of tighten up these other areas, so we'll go into the Insert Edge Loop tool. Let's go ahead and reset this. Everything's good. And we'll come in and add an edge loop on the front, and then a couple back here on the back to kind of tighten this up. And now the last thing that I want to add is sort of brackets that are holding this in place. Now we could build these as separate pieces of geometry, but I'm just going to build them off of this piece. So this bracket's going to be like a band encircling this wire. So let's go ahead and take these polygons, and we'll just take every other one, and we can do maybe 4 in this way, or we could kind of extend that back, but I think this will work just fine. And let's go ahead and do an extrude, and we'll just add a little bit of thickness to it. So something like that for the band. Okay. Now in order to make sure that that's tight when we subdivide it, again, it's kind of repetitive, but you're going to be using the Insert Edge Loop tool a lot. So we'll come in here and start to kind of tighten up those edges. Same thing, kind of right in here. And we'll do the same thing over here to kind of tighten this up. Now there's a couple other edges that you could add in there, depending on how tight you want it to actually be. And one more. This will help a little bit. We can smooth it. You can see we get those bands there. So the next thing we want to do is attach these down into our existing piece. So let me go ahead and isolate this so we can kind of see the bottom here. So we've got these two faces here. So let's make sure and select the ones on the outside. If we don't, the struts that we extrude down will be sort of rounded off, but here we can use the edge loops that we already built to keep the hardness of these struts. So we don't have to add two more if we want to kind of make it nice and straight. So let me select these. Okay. Sometimes you can go to wireframe and just make sure you don't have anything else selected when you do a kind of polygon selection like that. Let's go back and now let's just do an extrude. Let's change our pivot. Instead of using any of the parameters there, the options there, I'm just going to pull it down in the Y direction until it goes just inside the barrel, and then I'll delete it, or inside this piece rather, and I'll delete it. So I've deleted those faces that we extruded, so there's no smoothing happening there. So now you can see we have these nice little brackets that are attaching this little wire piece here. And if you wanted to add a little bit more detail here, you could come in on the front up here. We could start to do a little bit more here, do a little bit of an offset. Let's do maybe 0.05. We can also come in here and just scale it if it's not, going exactly the way that we want. We could do another extrude. Kind of pull this down. We don't want it to go negative. And another one. And then maybe just kind of pull this out a little bit. And again, just checking this by smoothing, just to add a little bit of more detail up there. So again, just kind of tying everything together. And instead of building these as separate pieces, we could just extrude those directly off of this piece. Alternatively, you could build a single bracket, put it in place just using a cylinder, extrude off the side, then just duplicate it a few times, and you get the same kind of effect. All right, so that's how we can kind of build this wire piece. Let's delete our history, freeze our transformations on that. So in the next lesson, let's actually build some cables. So instead of these sort of hard surface pieces, let's build something just a little bit more organic maybe. So we'll go ahead and do that in the next lesson.